Welcome back to the channel. So it's been about a week and a half since our successful 24-hour record run. I've had a haircut and we've done actually a lot of really lovely media from a lot of people who are very interested in what we achieved, which has been quite humbling and really nice. This is an interview done with Laid Back Bike Report. Gary has had us on numerous times before. He's an amazing supporter of all us manufacturers and builders in the sport. This interview heavily features Aidan clearly outlining what it's like to go through a 24-hour run. So I thought I would pull it out of a much bigger show and just put it on its own here so that you guys could really just see what Aidan has to say about running and successfully doing a 24-hour world record. Here we go.
We are back down under, and here with me today are Ben, Jono, and Aidan. Guys, welcome to the Laid Back Bike Report.
Thanks for having us, Gary.
Hey, thank you.
All right, so I think we'll just get started, if we could, by having you guys introduce yourselves and say who you are and tell us a little bit about what parts you played in this race this past week.
I'm Ben, the owner of TriSled, the key protagonist, the guy who decided to kick off this party when it was offered to us by OzHPV. And obviously not my first rodeo. We do records. So I went in for another round and obviously it went very well for us.
I'm Jono. I work at TriSled doing design and production, and I've been getting this thing ready to actually do the attempt and test and get Aidan fitting in the bike over the last 3 months.
I'm Aidan, and I am usually just a bike mechanic by day. But for this one, I was the man inside the machine on the day, and just some legs.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit more to it than that, Aidan, but we're going to get back to you on that. That's very humbly put. All right, let's go back to Ben if we could do that. Ben, can you maybe tell us briefly the backstory of this record attempt? How did it come about? How long in the planning and that sort of thing?
Sure. First of all, this is little Overzealous, our two-time successful 24-hour record holder, which has literally been on the shelf for 15 years. And just towards the end of last year, some conversations with the guys at OzHPV presented an opportunity to go to the Lang Lang Proving Ground, which is arguably, in fact, certainly the best place in Australia to attempt these kind of records. And I just initially went, oh, okay, that's very interesting, cool, glad it's happening. And then I guess I just started thinking about the opportunity and how we didn't get the opportunity 15 years ago to use this track, and not wanting to waste the opportunity again. How would this possibly happen? And about a month after that, I had a 3 a.m. moment, and I literally messaged Aidan. And Aidan and I are only just friends. We only just know each other. Well, we're better friends now, obviously. But at the time, I just knew Aidan, and I messaged him to see if he was interested, because he was the one person I could think of in the top of my head who would be an amazing engine for this. I thought he'd probably just say no, that'd be the end of it. I could get rid of this harebrained idea, move on, and just
tell me to get back to work.
Yeah, get Johnny back to work. However, several days later, Aidan came back to me saying yes, and that was basically the beginning of what was about a 12-week whirlwind of making this happen.
We're going to delve into that for sure. Before we do, can we just lay out there for folks what exactly did Aidan do? What was the record attempt, and what were his numbers? Aidan, why not we ask you?
Yeah. So the attempt that we went for was the 24-hour solo world record there. So I think the previous official mark was 12:19 kilometers. And we went out there and exceeded our own expectations and have got a calculated distance of 1347.342 kilometers.
To the 100th place. That's So
Are you sure,
that's
mate?
amazing. Ben, he sounds very sure, actually. We're going to get into what actually happened and how you got to that amazing number as well. But if we can, let's go back for a second to Ben and Jono and talk about that vehicle that's behind you, little overzealous. Ben, can you talk a little bit about that machine and describe it for folks who don't know exactly what it is and what went into making it, and why you thought that this was going to be the machine that Aiden could use to hit?
Sure. Overzealous really is one. There's actually a family of 6 bikes in the Overzealous family, which are all tri-sled built, essentially record attempting machines, and the name Overzealous really just implies over the top. In other words, more than what we could really do for a customer bike or anything you use every day, and more just a research vessel, if you like, to really explore limits. Little Overzealous is the second oldest of the family at 15 years old, and as the name implies, little is actually slightly smaller than the original Overzealous. And way back then, we calculated the original Overzealous wasn't quite capable of the 24-hour distance mark at the time. And so partnering up with Jeff Nielsen, the rider at the time, we actually literally cut Overzealous down the middle. We took 50 mil out of its middle and then brought it in and then reshaped it and remolded it. And here it is, little Overzealous. It was successful in a 24-hour run then, and then was put on the shelf for 15 years, basically. But coming into this, we realised we had some tricks up our sleeve for some more potential for it. Perhaps I'll let Jono talk about that, though.
Yeah, so 15 years ago when it did get put on the shelf, it was running on, wheels, for one, is the first major change that's happened in 15 years. So it was on Continental GP 5000s, I think, or just Grand Prix, actually.
Yep.
They're quite skinny tyres, fast for the time. But 15 years has passed and all tyres at that level have got better. But obviously, the best tyres are a lot better than those tyres now. So there was that potential to move on, and then some smaller gains in, say, drivetrain improvements, like chain treatments, ergonomics, and then a huge chunk of gain in even athlete performance, which we can talk about separately. But yeah, so a lot of the work we've done is to bring the bike as it is, with all the things we know work in it, which are mainly ergonomic and other sort of reliability factors you need to actually achieve a successful 24, and then bring its speed up using almost other people's advancements in the last 15 years.
Very good. All right, and I would be remiss here in talking about the little Overzealous if I didn't tell everyone that Ben Goodall has an amazing, and TriSled has an amazing YouTube channel themselves, where Ben lays out a lot of very entertaining stuff. And most recently, Ben, you have, is it a 3-part series, I think, about the Overzealous and the most recent build. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's nearly an hour and a half of content. So make time for it if you're
a cup of tea.
Yeah, make a cup of tea if you're interested in this. Really, what I tried to capture in the 3-part series was just basically, I guess, how almost unprofessional the act of setting world records with human-powered vehicles is. How it's really just about tinkering and making things work. So it's a bit of a departure from some of the stuff I normally have on my channel about custom builds and making things just right for customers and that kind of thing, and more just showing how you literally just chop things up and put them back together again until they work, and you rely on data and information from your team to decide what you're going to do to the vehicle. And you don't hold back. There are literally times when little Overzealous was chopped in half and welded back together again through getting this ready in order to get everything just right, so Aiden fitted just right inside it, which is actually, for Jono and I, a real holiday from our normal work, where there are a lot of standards that you have to adhere to build stuff for customers. This is almost like art, really. You can be a lot more expressive about it. and you don't have to doubt yourself. You can just get stuff done and make it right. So I guess that's probably what we really enjoy about these little runs and attempts and things.
In some ways, it was like, oh yeah, this is what we did 15 years ago. That's right.
Shit.
Yeah, we did cut everything.
I think that really points out the amazing experience that you two bring to the racing scene here. This, as Ben said earlier, it's not your first rodeo. So there's experimental parts. You're cutting it apart, but you're always relying on the many years of doing just that. And I'm sure that came to fruition, obviously, here in this past weekend in the race. And let's go ahead and start talking about that. Aidan, I wanted to ask you a little bit about what happened, what came before the race. First of all, tell us a little about your racing history. You didn't just jump into this HPV for the first time and start racing. You have had some racing experience. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so I've been racing HPVs with the Pedal Pre series, which we have in South Australia and Victoria, since about 2010 when I started high school, and basically done that every year since then. So going on 15 years of HPV experience there, and it was actually through racing HPVs that I got into racing bikes as well, mountain bikes, road bikes, and all sorts in between. So yeah, I've been doing getting more and more into cycling over the years and getting more and more into racing. And I guess probably about 5 years ago, racing also evolved into ultra distance racing as well, doing an event called Race of a Rock in South Australia here, which was about a 11-day race, which I guess was the start of my, I'd say, endurance base of riding.
So that's, and when we say endurance, we're mostly talking about what, 6, 12, 24-hour types of racing?
I'd say beyond the 12 hours.
Beyond 12. Yeah. Listen, I'm talking to the guy who just hit the record for 24 hours. So when I say 6 hours, that's just an afternoon ride for you.
Yeah, well, I guess the biggest race that I've done is actually the Tour Divide across from Canada to Mexico. So that was 15 days of racing. So 24 hours feels like a short little crit race in comparison to that, really. But yeah, a bit different there. So
tell me about your preparations.
Yeah, so obviously I got the message from Ben. It was about 3.5 months or so before the attempt. So not a huge amount of time to get started with it, but yeah, sort of jumped right on in and got myself borrowed a mate's indoor recumbent trainer, which is the first time in probably 5 years I've actually ridden indoors. So I was actually getting serious about that, and essentially got a coach to set up a proper training plan for it, and did about 3 months of proper structured training, which is a rarity for me. Coupling that in with commuting to work on the bike all the time as well. So yeah, I was probably doing between 20 and 25-hour weeks for the intense periods of it. Mostly just at pretty low efforts, just zone 2 style training. But yeah, that was sort of a physical training into there, and that's probably where a lot of the human developments have come a long way for this sort of stuff, is the physiological understandings of how we can train for these events and how to best eke out performance from somebody. Coupling that with some nutrition things, and sort of really I was incorporating a lot of nutrition training into my training stuff as well to really optimize the entire body functions. Mentally wise, is not too much more that I really had to do. I'd obviously had some pretty good experience with sleep deprivation from the ultra racing that I've done, and I've done a few rides through the night before, so I know what sort of feelings I'd be going through at 2 or 4 a.m. in the morning, and sort of what highs and lows you're going to experience.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, Aiden, with regards, this isn't really preparation, but in talking with some of the other racers for this event, they seem to be somewhat in awe of you and claim that you have somewhat of a endurance racing gene, seemingly born to be able to do this. Do you think that you have some advantage genetically?
Not that I've ever come across before, but I don't know. I'm the only one from my family that sort of is into this sort of stuff. So it's hard to say if it's fully in the genes there, but it does appear that I've taken it a bit like duck to water.
Great. That was an impossible question to answer. Thank you for giving it an attempt. All right, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and jump to your amazing race. We've been dancing all around it. So you've had a few days now to rest up a bit and reflect back. And so I'd love for you to be able to tell us the story.
We'll start with the day before, I guess, which was spent at Jono's place, getting some last minute prep done on the bike, making sure everything was in order. Making sure the final body preparations were all good and attempting to get a good night's sleep, which I'd set myself a hard bedtime, which I definitely went straight past. So then morning of, it was a nice early start to drive across to the track. I had a friend of mine, another Jono, but not this Jono, who was kindly driving me. So I was able to have a little nap in the car along the way. Got to the track and it was all pretty calm stations. We knew the bike was pretty much all set from the night before. So it was just a case of we had a little short wait out the front of the venue before everyone arrived, before we could get let in. So it was, the hardest part there was trying to stay seated and keep off my legs a bit, just to keep them a bit fresher. Got inside there. First thing I saw as we drove onto the track was about 15 kangaroos on the side of a track. So that was a little bit of a warning for later on. So the setup, we got there, and again, it was a struggle not to dive in and try and help everybody to set all the tents and everything up. They're all telling me to, no, sit down, don't do anything, you got to rest. So I felt a little bit guilty just sitting around doing not much, watching everyone else do the work in the morning. But everyone was more than happy to, and everything seemed to go up nice and quickly. And before we knew it, I was having to get changed, get ready, get all strapped up, and get ready to jump in the bike. So had a few things I needed to make sure I was ready on. There's some taping spots needed, just to prevent any rub points. So made sure I just was going through the checklist with all that. Got all the photos done we needed beforehand, and then we were about to set off to do a little sighting lap around the course. And I think it was probably like 11:15 that we were ready to do that. Everything I think had been double checked on the bike, and we set off. We had a little feed vehicle with Lockie inside of it, and we figured on that sighting lap we were going to do a few little bottle practices with some hand ups for refueling. So I think for half a lap or more we were just passing a bottle back and forth between us, so that was actually really helpful for later. Everything felt really good on that run, that little one lap. So rolled on up, and then basically it was just let's get ready to go. So we backed us up onto the start line, and at 11:11 a.m. we got rolling. So just started away from there. Had to pretty consciously take off and not just smash some pedals. Had to stick to our plan. We had a pretty solid power output plan of what we're going to try and stick to for pretty much the whole time. Got out there, took probably a good half a lap to slowly wind it up to cruising speed. But yeah, everything was feeling really nice out there. The first hour sort of went by and was probably a little bit above target in power, and the speed was a bit higher than we expected as well for the same power, which was promising to see. And I think it was about an hour and a half in is when I had the first bit of company join me on the track, because we had obviously Kyle and Andrew also attempting 24-hour attempts. So it was nice to finally see somebody else out there, but we were still just sticking to our schedule and my power numbers and all that. So to give a quick idea, I was aiming for 160 watts average, but I think the first hour was 175, and then maybe crept up to 180 in the second hour. But still, just trying to. The heart rate numbers were looking bang on what we expected, so I wasn't too worried that it was a little bit above. But yeah, we just had to try and just make sure we kept an eye and make sure the heart rate didn't start creeping. It definitely was difficult to maintain that restraint, because once Andrew got out there, he very quickly went out with a bit of a faster strategy, I think, and started passing me every 40 minutes or so, which means he was going an extra 5k an hour faster. So it definitely took a little bit of restraint to not just try and follow and keep him in sight. So we knew we had to stick to our plan because 24 hours was a long time, and if you get carried away in the first couple of hours, you won't know about it until it's too late. I think the first little hiccup we sort of came across was about 3 to 4 hours in. I started realizing we didn't quite get the headrest fit just right, and I was actually having to hold my head up too much to be able to see out of the front window as much as I needed, because we were experiencing a fair bit of a gusty conditions out there, and the vehicle was getting blown across the track quite a bit, which it very much enjoyed, and it was quite fast in those conditions, but it was requiring a fair bit more mental load to keep it on control and inside the lane. Also had a little bit of a waste management blowout in the first few hours. So
oh, please do tell.
So we thought of everything that we were out there. So obviously 24 hours you can't get through there without a bathroom break. So we were running a little external catheter, just like what divers and whatnot might use. So had a little bit of a malfunction of one of those. So at 4 hours in, when we were planning our first resupply of bottles, we decided rather than doing a rolling resupply, I'd actually do a stationary stop, and we would fix a few things at once, so I could get a quick little fresh change, a little wash up, and fresh install, and then also fix up that headrest and put a bit more foam under there. And that was really efficient. Only took us 4 minutes 20 seconds, and I was back out on the road again. The only next sort of event of note was one lap. Once it was dark, I was going around one of the corners, and I could see an extra bright light shining back at me, and then smelt the smell of burning fairing, and it turned out that Andrew had actually collected a kangaroo, one of those pesky kangaroos that was hanging around so much. He'd collected that and actually rolled over onto the inside of a track. Luckily, he was all good, and I think he got himself out of the vehicle and got back in and finished off the lap, and just got everything checked over, but was back on the road in no time and overtaking me just as quickly as ever.
We did have a chance to talk to Andrew about that, which honestly speaking, when I went to think about interviewing the guys on a 24-hour endurance HPV event, smashing into a kangaroo during the event was not on my bingo card. I just wasn't even thinking about that. So this, that's an unexpected thing. But luckily, this didn't happen to you.
No. There were a couple of close calls, though. yeah, there was a couple of times where a kangaroo jumped across in front of me. He was probably 100 meters, 200 meters in front, and sitting up on the high side of a bank, just waiting to jump back across as they always do. But luckily, yeah, stayed away from me. Unfortunately, Andrew managed to have not one but two roos jump in front of him over the weekend. So, yeah, he had some real bad luck there. Whereas I believe both Kyle and myself were clear. Yeah, about 1 a.m. We did a planned proper pit stop at that point. And Jono was able to do I think we did a rear wheel change just to make sure that the tyre wear wasn't going to come to catch us out at the end of the race. And also managed to fix up a few things inside the trike. We had some electronic telemetry things going on inside of there which weren't quite talking, so I was able to reset all that. Was able to the food pouch was starting to hang off the side of the wall a little bit, so we could get that patched up. And I was able to do another change of clothes. They gave me a sponge bath, so really freshen up there. Brush my teeth. Had some real food into me as well. And yeah, jumped back out into got some fresh taping onto me as well, because some of that was a little bit peeling off or not quite right. Yeah, jumped back out there. It was about 2 a.m. We had some weather come back in, so it was a quick little rain misting, I'll call it. There really wasn't much in it, but enough to wet the screen and potentially cause a little bit of fogging. But I was still able to see pretty good from the amount that we had. But with that weather change, the wind gusts really came back in really strong. And that was probably the sketchiest moment of the entire time. It was also the very first time that I actually got to overtake the others, because it seemed like they'd both fallen off the pace to what they were doing earlier in the day. I think as that wind sort of started picking up again, Overzealous really started to sail in it quite nicely. And I think maybe they were either struggling physically or the vehicle wasn't doing quite so good in that condition at the time. But yeah, I was halfway through my first overtake of the whole event, 15 hours in, and wind gust hit me from a left and then from a right, basically half a second later. And I think I was on the outside of Kyle and suddenly way up on two wheels, feeling like I was about to get thrown across the front of him. So that was a pretty huge spike of adrenaline, and heart rate suddenly jumped up to 150 beats a minute. And suddenly I was going 65k an hour, and way too fast for what I should be doing. So that definitely woke me up. And yeah, from there on, I was basically white knuckle gripping the steering wheel to keep it in check in those gusts of wind. Those wind gusts, they were a bit unrelenting for the next few hours. We were probably getting, I think, 50 or 60k hour gusts. Yeah, so it'd really blow you sort of a full lane's width across the track. And you just kind of, once I wasn't beside somebody, you're able to sort of let it take you across a bit, because we're on a 4-lane wide track there. Granted, the final 2 lanes were on some pretty steep banking, but yeah, you were able to really let it push you across a bit and go with the wind gust and just bring it back slowly. It would have been a couple of hours after that I think I noticed Andrew on the side of a track. And I think he was in a bit of a waze and trying to have a sleep in the vehicle. I think I found out later. But yeah, I think it was not long after that he had to pull the pin, which is a bit unfortunate. You really hope everyone can make it to the end at least. But yeah, that does happen sometimes in these ones. He gave a real solid crack and was bloody quick at the start, and he's going to hopefully walk away with the 12-hour world record there from that, which is pretty impressive when you can get that 12-hour by such a margin, even with hitting a kangaroo and rolling the trike in the middle of that is pretty impressive.
I mean, certainly he's going to get the record for the quickest 12-hour whilst hitting a kangaroo. That record, I think, has fallen without a doubt.
Yeah, he's got that one sewn up for sure.
All right, so let's get to the towards the end of the race. The other fellows in talking with me remarked, and I'm sure Jono and Ben are going to agree, that something happened in the last couple of hours with you, Aiden, that just had everyone's jaw on the ground. Like, not only were you just churning along, hitting those pedals, something like happened, and you became unexpectedly stronger. So tell us about the last couple hours in the finish, if you would.
Yeah, so it was probably about 3.5 hours to go. I think it would have been daybreak had just happened. And obviously we know we're getting towards the end of the effort there. And Luke called me up on the phone and basically was saying, we only got a few hours to go now. We've hit the marks all the way to here perfectly. Like, we've paced it exactly how we wanted to. What you do from here, basically, pacing anymore is not so critical. You can open it up a little bit more. Just don't kill yourself. You still got 3 hours or whatever to go to the finish. Let it open up a bit and just don't cramp. So yeah, the wind conditions felt like they just ended up perfect. It wasn't so gusty at that time of morning. It was just a steady wind, and Overzealous was still feeling exactly as it did on the first lap, just perfectly smooth. So I just sort of didn't even consciously really wind it up too much, but a couple of laps later, it sort of started to feel, and next thing I looked down and the speedo's showing me 60k an hour. Another couple of laps later, it's 62k an hour. It's just gradually crept up a little bit there, and then we were in talks, and we knew that Kyle was quite close. Was actually still, I think, just in front of me on time at that point, and we knew whatever I did in those final few hours, Kyle was going to have to try and match if he wanted to better the 24 mark that I was going to set, because we were pretty confident at that point that I was going to make it past the existing record, and it's just going to be what we could do after that. We knew he was going to have to match it, and he broke the, I think it was 1,000-kilometer mark, and then it probably was 2 hours to go that he continued on from that. And I kind of just knew it was me versus him to that point, which was, I definitely like to have a good challenge in there. And yeah, couldn't even see him on the track, and I wasn't getting live updates of what sort of lap times he was setting versus what I was doing, but it was just a case of each lap I'd just try and hold. There was past the pits, you'd get a bit of a tailwind, and the track could sort of just go up by an extra 3 or 4k an hour there, and then I'd sort of just try and hold a little bit higher speed into the headwind, and the next lap it would go up a little bit faster, and I'd hold that little bit higher speed into the next headwind. And yeah, next thing we knew, that we were just running around there going 70 plus k an hour down in the tailwind, and then doing average laps of 67 to 69 k's an hour. And I knew that was unsustainable to the end. But it got to the point where we did enough that it pretty much became mathematically very, very difficult for Kyle to get to the finish as well, to be able to match that pace. And at that point, I think he pulled the pin when I had an hour and a half to go. And from there on, it was, I could back it off to what I could hold to definitely get to the finish and just try and set the highest mark I possibly could. So I think we held 60k an hour to the finish from there. And yeah.
That is
pretty much it.
amazing. So actually, I mean, that competition with Kyle really contributed, it seems, to the numbers you were able to put up. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely having, if it was just me out there and we knew that, I was going to be in front of a record, I'm pretty sure maybe I would have lifted to, maybe up to 60 or 57 Ks an hour for the last few hours. But I don't think it would have been anywhere near as close to the speeds we started clocking towards the end there. Just having that extra friendly competition right at the end there.
All right. Well, speaking of friendly, I'm guessing when you finally got to the finish, you saw some friendly faces there of the rest of your team. So tell us about the pulling in that last lap and pulling in. What was that like?
Yeah, so I guess a few laps, it's probably half hour to go. The first friendly face popped out of nowhere. As Ben made his first appearance of the weekend, which was a slightly interesting moment because the wind gust had definitely come back. And right at the point where the wind gust first hits you and going past the pits is right where Ben was standing and stepped out to give me a big wave. And I was a little bit of a clenched moment inside of there going, don't take him out with a wind gust or something. But going across those last few lines and, the guys were writing up some signs and stuff to show me on the last few bits and basically giving me an archway to ride through every second lap. It was pretty cool moments. You see that once every 5 minutes. So when you come past, so you got plenty of time out there still to process everything while you're going along a bit there. And, at that point in this race, it was pretty clear that we had achieved what we'd achieved there. And then, pulling into the finish after the final warm down lap. It was a pretty special moment, I guess, being able to thank the whole team for all their efforts over the whole weekend because, I'd only actually really seen them for maybe 20 minutes tops, and that was me barely cognitive and just asking for a little bit more water or to get this or get that and not really actually being able to interact properly with them. So, seeing them all at the finish there after everything they'd done for me that weekend to get the whole team across the line there was, it's quite nice.
Very, very nice. All right, so guys, let's finish up with Ben and Jono. If you could briefly tell us what you thought at the end there as well when you saw Aiden pass the finish line, knowing he had the record, and that all your efforts actually paid off. Ben, tell us, if you would, your thoughts on his race, and then Jono, I'd like to hear yours.
Yeah, look, first of all, I'd just like to, point out that this has been a real, triumph in, my personal development around team building and leadership, because as Aidan pointed out, I did myself out of a job for the weekend. I wasn't even there until the end. And so I was getting updates from the guys. We even FaceTimed at one point accidentally while I was on my afternoon bike ride with Beck. We actually had to chat with Aidan while he was riding, which was really lovely. And just, it's all happening. Well done, guys. And but anyway, to your question, I was getting updates. We're about 2 hours drive here from the track. So I sort of was getting ready to get in the car. And so I was still getting updates on the way down. And the staff at the proving ground kind of rushed me in time to sort of be there at the end and almost let Aidan run me over. And basically the whole way through it, I just didn't have a shadow of doubt, to be honest with you, Gary. This team, this rider, everything was in place. And I've been doing this all my adult life, and there are very few moments when you have that kind of certainty in this game. And so I was just basically really swimming in the euphoria of that certainty is probably how I would describe how it felt. So, amazing.
I guess I kind of had the first feeling of the first finishing and crossing the line of when Aiden actually surpassed the previous record, and it had been all really controlled. We'd done a pretty good job all weekend of making sure nothing went wrong and ticking off, really sort of structured, felt like a job. We're all doing our job right. And then I thought, that's really nice. And then he just went faster and faster. And I just had to go and pack my tent up. I'm like, no, this is enough for me. You finish so anyway. Rather than run out on the track and sort of slow him down, I just went and packed up. So then when he finally finished, it was a really amazing feeling. I think finally it could switch from the job is done to actually kind of acknowledge what he's done. Oh my God, this is the furthest someone's traveled in a day under their own power, ever. Sort of start to have that sink in, which is, it was really, really special.
Fantastic. All right, let's end up here with Aiden. A last couple of questions. Aiden, I know that after you finished the race, Ben had his cell phone camera out, and he was asking people various questions. Did a great job. He came up to you and started asking you a quick interview after that 24 hours of racing. I guess my question to you, Aiden, is what was physically more difficult for you, racing 24 hours and getting the record, or having to stand up next to Ben and answering questions after that?
Standing up actually wasn't too difficult at that point in time. If I was standing or I was sitting, I was fine, but the transition between either of those was excruciating.
Very good. All right. The last things then. So my understanding is these records are yet to be certified. This is how it works. It seems unquestionable at this point that it's in the bag, but they do need to be certified. So we'll wait for that, for the final record to come out. But what about the future here, guys? Aiden, do you plan on doing more 24-hour races in the future?
I definitely haven't locked any in yet, that's for sure. Yeah, I'm not chomping up a bit yet.
Not next weekend, for sure.
No. Oh, well, nah, not a 24-hour race, definitely not.
He's got some comms to go and get while he's got this fitness off the back of the 24,
All right, fellas, thank you so much. This has been really, really fun talking with you, learning more about that last weekend and the amazing accomplishments that you all worked together to achieve. So thanks for coming on the Laid Back Bike Report to tell everyone about that. Ben, I'll give you the last word here. Any final thoughts?
Obviously, gratitude, Gary. It's just been we've learned so much. It's actually probably what I really should say. And, we're product designers, and so much of what we're doing here is about pushing limits to learn what works and what doesn't work, and how to create, I guess, products that people can enjoy that are human powered. So pushing it to the limits where you learn, and we learned a shit ton. It's amazing. Yep. So back to work for us. Yeah, keep moving forward. That's it.
All right, super. Well, Ben, Jono, Aiden, thanks again for joining me today. Best of luck to all of you. We'll be watching in the future for any new racing that comes along. And thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks, Gary.
Okay, guys.
A link in the description to Laid Back Bike Report. Make sure you give that a like and a subscribe. A lot of great content there on Gary's channel. But I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.